Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 172 of my modded Factorio playthrough. It looks like the sodium hydroxide setup is working pretty well. The warehouse is about to max out, and I wanted to get started on adding some more coil types, like with silver and silver wire. But I was noticing some problems with the trains, where the same problem of before, where trains were delivering resources that weren't requested. So for example, I had like 150,000, something like that, solder coils up here. Like it just kept delivering it until it was completely maxed out. So like if you come down here, look at all these warehouses. So yeah, I guess I had about an extra 100,000 of resources. And I couldn't figure out why I was doing it. So it's the same problem as before, where, I don't know, it just kept sending trains. And you would look at LTN, and everything would look fine. And I think I have it fixed. And the fix, in the LTN settings, is a setting down here called Delivery Completes at Requester. Basically, it just decides when is the train available for another load, after it delivers or after it gets back to the depot. And I'm not sure why changing this would fix the problem. It doesn't make any sense. But I clicked it, enabled it, so delivery completes at requester, and now it doesn't seem to be doing extra trains. So what I'm wondering is either with one of the mods or with LTN, it was like doubling up on trains. It wasn't counting trains as delivering stuff, so then you would get doubles or triples or whatever. But fingers crossed that it's officially fixed now. So that's kind of what I've been doing, is just doing some research, letting the factory just run for a few hours, and just trying to see if this LTN stuff is all good. And I think it basically is, because it's been doing quite a bit of research here. And goes through tons of glass, as you would expect, because it's using like 35 glass a second. So I did upgrade the glass to these bigger warehouses, and most trade stops probably need those, but that helps with throughput. But I've been watching it, and it doesn't seem like it sent any extra trains. But there is one problem that's cropped up. You notice on Circuit HUD here, we don't have all of our resource types. That we are completely out of silver, and that is because every method that creates silver is blocked right now. I think it's because every method making silver makes tin as well. So we're making no silver at all except for what we're getting from the crystallizers. And silicon is also gone. And that's because I changed the priority from silicon for these catalysts to silver. But it looks like it's basically clogged up. And we do have a way of generating more catalysts through geodes. And I kind of wanted to put that off unless we actually needed it, but it looks like after giving the factory a few hours, we actually do need it, because it's basically clogged up now. So I'm going to let LTN keep working, keep sending trains, making sure there's no doubles. And I can kind of tell, because you look at LTN Manager, and whenever you have a problem train, it will have the red text saying the train had residue, which I still don't understand exactly what that means. I mean, it sense would tell you that it couldn't unload, so that's why it has residue, but every time I see it, I'm like, it should have been able to unload, so I don't get it. But it looks like it's operating fine now. So what we need to do is a quick fix for our ore bus here. I think at some point in the past, off camera, I upgraded the capacity of geodes here to handle more. But ultimately, we just don't have enough input. So let's see, what kind of outputs are we looking at here? All of these machines create 37 per second. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consumers of it. And each one uses like 15 Well, we only have 2 red belts. Let's just do some quick calculations here. Just out of curiosity. What would 2 red belts take? That is the wrong thing. There we go. I see. I was like, oh, it takes 10 machines to do that. Well, we have productivity modules in there. That's why those 8 machines aren't doing very much. Because they're just trying to get as much as we can out of them. We probably want to try to do this in a way that uses the same setup. So let's see if we can do that without replacing any machines. So we have speed modules in there, which means we need to have 30 machines. That's 24. But we can put speed module in there, and that basically makes it fit. Which we need the crystal slurry from dust. And that's the part that was missized on here for some reason. Because this says we need 15 liquefiers, and there's only 6 there. But it can take modules, so it's close. And ballpark is good. Then with calculating this dust, it's a little difficult. The moderate efficiency, where you get 2 dust per machine. Let's see, looks like hopefully glass is still working properly. And we do have access to the 3rd tier of ore crusher, but let's make sure the glass is working. Yeah, it's just basically completely out now, so that's not good. So we have better crushers, could probably throw tons of speed modules in there. And we have a total of 12 of them. And that will fit. So it looks like with higher speed machines and speed modules, we can just barely get in there. But that requires 150 purple geodes, which might not really be possible. We only have 2 belts here to begin with. Let's see. Create a new line here. Let's see what 30 geodes a second is going to look like as far as the setup size. So we'll go in here, wash for geodes. Probably going to want speed modules there. Let's just put 1 machine in there for now, because we have our output of all this random stuff. Then we have to link every one of these. It's a little annoying having these different kinds of geodes, and you have to take care of each one individually because different geodes give you different amounts of dust. And I think all this is even kind of randomized. If I look at the washing recipe, yeah. So we don't even get a consistent amount of geodes from this. So it's going to be a little weird. But we just want some numbers here. Okay. So after everything's said and done, 1 machine gives us 4.1 dust. So instead, looks like 7.5-ish will give us what we're looking for, although it's going to be a lot of crushed stone. Let's see what kind of input for mud water that is. Not too bad, a couple of machines and a pump. So basically, that's roughly 1 seafloor pump into 3 washing plants into 7.5. And then this setup of grinders to make 30 dust. Oh, looks like something's happening at least. Yeah, looks like it filled up and now it's at least making a little bit of silver. It's kind of interesting how nothing was happening until something was happening. Let's see, finished with that research. Well, might as well continue. The character researches take a very long time now. We're getting up to 11,000. But that's a great way to just dump resources to test this out, but we're heavily limited based on our selection of geodes, so when we have them, things start working again. Well, for now, how about let's just build 1 of these, because even having a single one is going to create way more geodes than we already have here. Because I don't think we really need that many geodes, because we're not really making zinc at all, or nickel. So we only really be running it for silicon, silver, and aluminum. Let's see, anything else on this we might want to change? So we've got speed modules there. Can probably throw a speed module and efficiency in that one. Seafloor is fine. And actually, it's interesting that some of these require one machine and some of them require two. So through using speed modules, we can make it so we only need one machine of every type. To make it look a little more consistent, which is kind of neat. Okay, let's make the build real fast, and then we can find somewhere to put it. It's probably not going to be too particularly large. Oh, another thing is that it looks like most of the salt got delivered. That this warehouse is about half full. But you come down here and no more salt. So we've been grinding through it, definitely consuming the salt faster than we're creating it, which is what I was expecting. But at least this means that we're not just constantly electrolyzing stuff. So it's a little more efficient to do it that way. But this is also a good test while making this geode setup, just to make sure that the trains are still working properly, because it was getting pretty bad where you couldn't go about 15 minutes before a train would get confused and completely mess up with resources. And it was making the bus have to work extra hard if it's making 100,000 extra resources you don't even need, which is not great. Okay, that should be pretty straightforward here. We'll want to try to do this as smooth as possible. And then we can have these coming here, but actually, if we do this but space it out by 1, that's going to be real annoying to find out how many inserters you need because you have all these outputs. Well, let's just give each one a stack inserter and hope that's enough. And these ones don't produce any mud, so we don't have to worry about that. So hopefully something like this, right? And it's copyable, but this can go down in here. There we go. I'll just make this red, because I think this is going to create slightly more than 30 a second, and that's okay. Yep, getting lots of warnings now. No glass, no glass. Let's change this number to 8, since that's what we're doing, and it does kind of change things a little bit, so that's good to see. We still can use this one pump, but it changes the modules a little bit. Oh, those just barely don't reach. Okay, and then we need 2 washing plants going into there. So luckily, we've got 2 rows here. Let's see what the orientation of the pipes is. We can make that work because water will still be kind of in the middle. There needs to be a little bit of space here though. Let's put it off to the side and we can see how it fits later. See, that's the input, which can go up somewhere. The water will be there. And then that can connect to here. It's offset by 1, but it would still line up. Let's see, is this going to work? Sure looks like it just needs to be spaced out a bit. And pipe visualizer says... I think that's pretty good. And then these 2 pipes here are just the inputs. And those are making a little bit of mud. Not sure where the mud would go. Let's just have belts going the other way. Get the near and vars set up there. And yeah, that'll be 1 pump. But that's pretty good there. It's going to be slightly too much for 1 red belt, but I really don't want to put 2 red belts down there just for a couple of extra crystal dust a second. And even for the crushed stone, I don't know if I want to. We'll have to see. Unless I use 3 belts for all the output. And then have it get sorted later. I wonder if that would work. Because this is all pretty tightly compacted in here. So really the belt would probably have to come in through the side here. There's actually not that much space to do this. It could be up here maybe. And send it over. But even that is getting compacted. That the factory is getting to the point where it needs to be decentralized. We can do it down here. That would actually probably work best. And crushed stone is right here. So having 2 belts for crushed stone isn't that big a deal because it's right in the immediate vicinity. Although there's definitely shortages of belts here, which isn't great. But we'll have to see how it works. But we'll combine all of this into 1 belt. And then we need 6 crushers, each with their own assortment of modules. And I don't think we have the tier 3s being manufactured, so we'll have to handcraft some of those. And let's see, how can we stack these in here? Well, the very fastest ones are going to need 2 inputs and 2 outputs. Just barely, but they will. Okay, let's process each type. And then yay, and do them all as required. Putting in the correct types of modules and the correct number of inserters. I think I want to use like a sorting warehouse for this. So let's do 4 belts to begin with here. So there's that, 2 in, 2 out. And the cyan is just efficiency. Doesn't have to have a stack inserter technically, but I'll just put 1 in anyway. There is one potential problem with this though, that if any geodes are missed, then it will clog the system. Be kind of funny looking, but I wonder if we should do a loop where if the geodes don't get consumed, they go back. Otherwise, we're going to need to have a bunch of splitters and have like 6 different belts, or at least 3 different belts for each of the colors. And that might take up more space, but this is different. Haven't done this kind of belt arrangement yet, so how about we do this and just see what it looks like, where it's going to be a big old loop. It's kind of funny. And these will just fill it up the best they can. It's like geode sushi. Okay, then we're going to have a bunch of output. It looks like 4 belts going in, but it's really only 3. And then from there, we can get rid of the crushed stone and then send 1 belt of crystal dust where it needs to go. So hopefully that's all there is to it. And luckily, it's not too big, so we should be able to find somewhere to put it. It looks like LTN is still doing okay. One other thing that I did at each station is put these warnings here. Basically what it's doing is looking to see, do you have a positive number for any of the resources? Because the way that LTN works is you say a negative number, which shows you how far behind you are from the ideal amount. So if it ever says positive, it means it was delivered too much. So I have these warnings set up at all of the LTN stations, at least these big dynamic ones here, to send off a warning if too many resources are delivered. And nothing's been going off yet, so hopefully it's all working. Okay. We are going to be doing a little bit of landfilling, so let's grab some. And I believe we should have a bunch of mud landfill just kind of collecting because of our mud overload here. Pretty much. I mean, it's not a ton, but it's something. It is nice getting free landfill from mud, though. So it's not the end of the world if you just have a lot of mud. But nonetheless, I am happy that we're starting to change how that's done to limit the mud overload. Alright, let's get in here. It's getting harder and harder to drive through here. Somewhere around here ought to work. And we have a cable coming through here, but it probably doesn't need to go through there specifically. It can, like, do this instead. And might want to position this in a way where we can do a few of them. But these pumps are kind of not in the great spot. Yeah, let's move it down a bit. Well, I'm surprised that we're still making resources. We're still short on a lot of resources, but it's still working though, which is surprising. I was thinking that the bus was going to completely clog up, but it looks like it is trying its best to unclog. I mean, we're still maxed out on tin and nickel. And that's kind of one thing I was surprised about, is how full on tin we ended up being. But it's not that we're not using it, we're just not using it fast enough. But it looks like it's basically automated, it's just a little clogged, but the fact that it's trying to unclog is pretty neat. So hopefully if we need to, we can build a few of these. Very little of the original coastline remains up here. How about something like that? Okay, we need to get the output set up on this. Okay, so we've got one output of the dust. And two of the crushed stone. And we'll set some logic here, just connected to the crystal dust. Let's say if there's less than a stack of it in there to turn on. Well, that top belt isn't being used for much. I know that that's just completely random based on which resources are being crushed at the time. So let's use this last slot right here, since we know that we're going to need at least that much. And we can send another one up. And just combine here, and hopefully it will fit, and we'll have input priority for the main belt there. And hopefully that ends up being enough. We're going to need to move mud somewhere, but for the time being, we can find out if this works properly. We need a little bit of water. Man, I'm just so surprised that the system is working again. I was convinced that it was going to stay clogged. But it's trying. I mean, it's still, you know, that's not good. It's slowing down to a crawl here, but It is moving. Well, hey, that's great. It means it can handle unforeseen circumstances in the future. Alright, we should have water in all of these. And then we need the offshore in here. It's kind of interesting how that works. But hey, it's going. Building up some crystal dust. And then it fills up. And then after it does, the sushi collects. And I guess that'll just keep going until it fills up. That's kind of funny. Okay. We've got a little bit of mud to take care of here. And let's see. I don't know if there's any mud in the general vicinity. Kind of doesn't look like it. So we can probably put a station here. And would it line up going right down the middle here? No, but we can come off to the side. The multicolor. And there we go. Hopefully that takes care of the mud. And like usual, we need a rider in here to limit this. So there's no unnecessary drones. So it has to be more than 600. Well, I believed we had a new set of modules that we needed to install on all of this. Looks like speed modules for all of these. 0. Oh, there's already efficiencies in there. Hopefully the inserters are fast enough. Seems like they would be. And then we need a bunch of speed modules for these. And technically, this is not going to be enough. Like, this is kind of the problem you run into is with throughput. Because we would need 5 belts of input for all of these to work. Well, we could try our best to modify this so it works in that way. Well, the problem is kind of the positioning of it doesn't really work too well for that. But I still want to try. It's kind of funny how spaghetti it's starting to get in here. Well, despite having 6 machines here, we might only be able to feed like 4 of them anyway. Well, let's extend it down. So they all get equal shot at it. Anyway, we'll do what we can. It's just to keep in mind that this setup is starting to hit its maximum size. That if it ever needs to get bigger, then this whole setup probably needs to be decentralized. So we have more space. But we're doing alright here. So the liquefiers are good. Filtrations are good. Then the crystallizers are also good. We just need speed modules in here now instead of productivity. Hurts a little bit to put those, but actually I wonder if we can keep the productivities in here. Because this has an input of a lot of dust. I don't know if we're ever actually going to put that much in here. I mean, maybe. You know what? Productivities are not the worst idea just to make this stuff go farther. And we do have a little bit of space to put more of these in here. And productivity modules are so good. But we could put a few more machines in there if we need to. But I think that's pretty good. Now we just need to get the dust up here and we gotta find the right spot. And I see there is a empty slot in here. That is pretty much exactly where we'd want it to be. And we'll just have this connected, and we'll need some logic here because we don't want this running all the time. Just want to keep it topped up let's see. We can say 10,000 for now, but what do we want the topped up number to be? Because this is set to 60,000, but that's to drain to go towards making crystals. So I don't know if we necessarily want to be supplying dust for that, since we do have the farms for doing that now. So 10,000 might be a pretty healthy number, but just depends on what all this is set to. Because we don't want to be dumping it. Not that that has ever run before. But yeah, let's go with 10,000 for now. Look at all that salt. It's nice knowing it has somewhere to go now. And then we'll let that connect. And it looks like that's starting up again. Yeah, it's a little bit more than one belt, so it's not going to be at 100% speed, but close enough. Well, it's actually going down, so maybe it won't matter. Let's see what this dust does to the system. There we go. One belt into 4 doesn't look very exciting, but it's doing stuff now. And suddenly, we're making more crystal catalysts, and the dust is disappearing, which is not what I would like to see. I see. It's the sushi belt. They were just placing all of the same kind, which is now limiting stuff. So we can't do that. No sushi belt. Okay, well that's probably going to kind of change the setup of this a little bit. Let's go into sorting warehouse. Probably want to have enough slots on here where it's actually doing some sorting. Let's do like that. So there's a bit of a buffer for each color. And then we'll need to do an output here. Actually, if we want it to look right, we'll probably need to have a bunch of these. There we go. Of course, getting filled up on geodes, but and kind of starting to run out of space. Yeah, that's not good. That happened fast. Well, I kind of want to just put this over here for now, so I can grab the necessary machines. Where we need yellow and the green. I'm going to need to change the position of this inserter. It's interesting, the process is continuing. I'm just kind of blown away. I was not expecting it to be that self-sufficient, to where this whole time research has been continuing slowly. And look at that. We have aluminum again. So I think that means we are now no longer short on any one resource. Yep. It fixed itself. Wow. But nonetheless, the performance is limited like this, so we might as well try to get it as fast as possible. And let's see. I'm making this super wide. Does it need to be? Probably not, but we are kind of space limited. And if we ever need more than one machine, we might be happy that they're spread out like this. So I'll just leave it the way it is. Okay, so we can kind of pick up the rest of this now. Then all of this needs to go back into a warehouse. Let's just put it up here to give us some space. And I am running out of those unloaders. And part of the reason is because the recipe changed, where now fast loaders require white circuits. That was not the case before. So I've run out because the base is no longer producing them because the resource requirement changed a little bit. So I haven't been replenishing my inventory. That's what happens when you update mods. Things change. Let's see if we can patch this together to get it just barely working. So that requires an iron plate. And this requires iron gear wheels and boards. So that's actually kind of annoying. We can put a long-handed inserter right there to get that going. Well, this setup is not long for the world, so let's just move it around. Yeah, it actually requires basic electronic boards too. That's kind of interesting. It requires both of those. We got some gears down here. It's such a mess. It's interesting that they used to require steel gears and now it's down to iron. But whatever. Problem solved. We'll just grab those loaders for now so we can hook the setup up. Kind of surprised. Not only that research is continuing, but like how fast it's going. I know it doesn't seem like it's very fast, but considering that this requires 11,000 research, it's actually moving pretty good. Okay, we need that logic. Like before. Our dust has to be less than 200. And let's unhook that for a second to see how all this works. Because I think it's good. Well, so far so good. So we'll hook it up again. It might take this a while to go through its buffer before it cleans up, but so far so good. Okay, time for round 2. And there we go. So far, that's enough with the productivity modules. Let's see how we do. Oh yeah. Nice, almost solid yellow belt. And this is simply what we are creating extra, because this whole setup will still create its own geodes. So we don't have to fully create all of the geodes necessary with that washing plant. Just enough so this doesn't clog up. And hey, that filled up. So the catalysts are going to back up. There we go. So when that gets to 200, it should enable it. Yep, right here for aluminum. And these are going to start running. Meanwhile, how is this setup working? Still sending out a full belt. It's like it's still trying to get through its buffer here. Stack inserters are having trouble doing it. It looks like they barely can, but because they have these 6 different types of geodes, they have to do a lot of swings for only like one resource at a time. But they are barely fast enough. So there's silicon. And we were very low on that. And starting to build up now. So how have the trains been doing? Making sure there's no warnings, and there doesn't seem to be. Let's make sure there's no extra resources. Of course, I have alarms here, so I would hope that they would alert me correctly. But nonetheless, we can check them out. And that one seems pretty good. The aluminum delivery has been working well. Research is continuing up here on circuits. This side of the plant doesn't operate as much, but nonetheless, it looks pretty good. It's amazing how much silicon we're using, even though we've upgraded glass to be so much more efficient than it used to be. It's still consuming a bunch of silicon, but it seems pretty good. Definitely this loads much faster now, having these extra inserters. And actually, I think that's something we can research, now that I think about it. So we have some inserter upgrades we can do. In fact, we have 2 of them. Stack inserter plus 1. And stack inserter plus 1. And also we have an upgrade for non-stack inserter. So let's throw those in there too. Well, even though we're using our silicon, we're building up on it. And there we go. Maxed out on silicon. And we've actually been producing these catalysts faster than we needed. So this warehouse is filling up. Okay. Looks like our dust production has slowed down a little bit. That's interesting. Of course, it's randomized, so that's part of it. But we definitely have our 8 washing plants. Although I see what it is. There's no speed modules in there. So I'm like, that number should be correct. Ah, but doing that, we definitely don't have enough inserters now. Slow on the mud water, but looks like I didn't put modules in there either. And it looks like that is definitely creating our solid belt now. We're topping up all the way back here at the crystallizers. So for the first time in basically forever, this whole setup is actually going to be maxed out and topped up. And hey, I noticed that tin ore went down a little bit. And now, because we have other methods available to produce resources, that it didn't just get nuked again. And there we go. Topped up on crystal dust. And this will continue. Maxing everything out, but looking pretty good. And we're making lots of acids too. And salt is continuing to go down. No unnecessary train requests. It's all running nice and smoothly. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we're going to work on steel and silver coils. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.